Everyone treats summer like it owes you happiness. Long days, pool parties, your best life on a loop. So what does it mean when you feel worse? The summer blues are real. It's why summer is one of the busiest stretches of the year for people starting therapy. Therapy is not only for when you're in crisis. Growth therapy is for all the moments when you decide you want more. More support, more clarity, more tools. Mental health isn't a destination you reach. It's something you build, and Grow makes that easier. Grow connects you with thousands of high-quality licensed therapists across the U.S., offering both virtual and in-person sessions, nights and weekends. You can search by what matters, like insurance, specialty, identity, or availability, and get started in as little as 2 days. There are no subscriptions, no long-term commitments. You just pay per session. Grow helps you find therapy on your time. The therapist you want takes your insurance on Grow. Grow accepts over 125 insurance plans. Sessions average $21 with insurance, and some pay as little as $0 depending on their plan. Visit growtherapy.com/book now today to get started. That's growtherapy.com/book now. growtherapy.com/book now. Availability and coverage vary by state and insurance plan.
Hey everybody, Randy Patterson here with Boomerocity, and I have an extra, or as they might say in the South, an extra special episode for you this time around. Before I introduce Reese Wynans to you and let you hear what all he has to say, I got to tell you a little story. Back in 1990, when the world sadly lost Stevie Ray Vaughan, uh, my daughter was off from school and I stayed home from work and I had to do some running around. And her mother, my ex-wife, uh, gave us strict orders not to go to the Stevie Ray funeral because it was known that I really wanted to go. And so I was driving around, and long story short, my little then 5-year-old daughter said she would like to go to that funeral because, in her little words, she said, never been to a famous person's funeral before. And so, being the good dad that I am, I took her. I did happen to have a camera around. That's before phones started taking cameras. And I took pictures. We walked up to the graveside service just as Bonnie Raitt, Stevie Wonder, and Jackson Browne were singing Amazing Grace a cappella. I lost those photos in the divorce, but I never lost the memories of that day. And we've, of course, none of us have forgotten Stevie Ray Vaughan. Well, his keyboardist at the time in the band Double Trouble was none other than Reese Wynans. He went on to play with other greats like Carole King and Boz Scaggs and many, many others, including one of my faves, and that is Joe Bonamassa. He was with Joe for 11 years, got to see him many times with Joe in concert, and he is one of the most widely respected keyboardists on the planet. And such an easy guy, phenomenal guy, friendly guy, gracious guy to talk to. I, I quite honestly was a little nervous going into this because I just didn't, when guys semi-retire, they've talked to so many people, they really don't feel like they need to talk to guys like us anymore. But he acted as if this was the first interview he had, which speaks highly of his graciousness. So while you're listening to that, if you don't mind, hit like and subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. Go out and buy Reese's latest album called Sweet Release. And because I think you're really going to like it. There's some songs you're going to recognize. There's a lot of artists you already know and love joining him on this album. And we also talk about how that album and his career is going to be commemorated later this month, and this is August 2026, in Nashville, Tennessee. And so we talk a bit about that as well. So without any further ado, here is my first of what I hope are many more chats to come with the great Reese Wynans. Until next time, this is Randy Patterson with Boomerocity. Take care. Hello, Reese.
Hi, Randy. How are you today?
I am doing fantastic. I take it you're clicking in from the great Nashville area.
Yeah, I live just south of Nashville. I've been here for about almost 35 years now, and so
Wow. I
I
didn't
kind of
realize
like
you'd been there that long. My
it.
goodness. I wasn't going to bring this up until later, but when I started Boomerocity, I was in Dallas, and way before I started it, unfortunately, it was, and this conversation is not going to focus entirely on that, and mostly on your upcoming event at Third and Lindsley, and of course your album. But I was at Stevie Ray's funeral, and it's actually a funny story of how I even wound up there. But growing or not growing up, but working in Dallas, Stevie Ray was the man, and so I walked up just as Stevie Wonder, Bonnie Raitt, and Jackson Browne were singing Amazing Grace, as I recall. I think it was Amazing Grace they were singing.
I
And
believe
of
it
course,
was.
and I saw the guys from ZZ Top there, and of course Jimmy. And I've interviewed Jimmy several times. Great guy. But anyway, it's an honor because of all your involvement with all that. It's an honor to finally be able to talk to you because I followed you not only in those days, but since then, your long track with one of my shortlist favorite artists, and that's Joe Bonamassa. So it's because of all that, and just the fact I've heard you're a great man to talk to. It's a thrill for me to finally be able to talk to you.
Well, thanks. Can you see me okay? Does
I
this
see you
sound
just great.
does this
Yeah,
sound all
you're
right?
good.
I
Yeah.
appreciate you. I don't have a microphone or anything like that, so I'm glad this is working out.
Yeah,
And
I hear you just fine. It's good. And when you say south of Nashville, is that the Franklin area?
just above Franklin is a little suburb called Brentwood. That's where I live.
Oh, I have I guess she's a great aunt. It's my grandfather's sister-in-law. She's about to turn 100 years old, and she lives there in Brentwood. So,
Making me feel
very,
young now.
yeah, I need all the help I can get to feel that way. So, I'm about to turn 67 this fall, and it, sometimes I wonder.
Oh, you're just a youngster now. Uh, I'm glad that you mentioned Dallas. That was such a sad time. When Stevie passed. So tragic, and before his time, and I remember the funeral and how I felt afterwards. How I felt so empty, like I did I sort of lost my direction. I really didn't know what was going to be ahead for me because I had looked towards staying with Stevie and the band forever. That was. I felt like I had found my spot, and that's where I wanted to be. So it was a completely sad day for me. But I'll tell you something else. The very first gig I ever played with Stevie was in Dallas.
Really?
Uh, yeah, we did that. I was recording that Soul to Soul record over at the record plant at Las Colinas,
Right?
and and he had asked me to join the band, and so I stayed there for the weekend recording with him. We went home, think about it, came back the next weekend. We recorded some more, and I said, I'm in, and let's go. So the first gig we had was, and I wish I could remember the radio station. It's a radio station show. It was about 5,000 people, and I
Whoa.
and I said, all right, Stephen. Well, here's what we do. Just you guys just do your regular show, and then call me out when you want to do the songs from the new record, and I'll just come out and join you for that. And he says, oh no, that's not the way this is going to work. You're in the band. You're playing the whole night. So
Whoa.
I went on stage with him for the first time with no rehearsals or anything. The only songs I knew were the ones that we had recorded.
Oh no.
And
No pressure.
I know, just throwing me right into the fire. And God bless him. It was so fun. And we played that show, and then we went on to play Chicago Fest a couple of days later for his headline in front of like 75,000 or something like that up
Wow.
there. And it was just incredible. Here I'm just trying to hang on, say, listening to all the records, kind of getting the songs in my mind. And the next thing you know, we're in Montreux playing the Montreux Jazz Festival.
Wow.
That was like my fourth gig in the band. and and
Well, you went from one extreme to the other, didn't
tell
you?
me about it. And the live record. I mean, one of the track of Soul to Soul was from that Montreux gig, the fourth gig I played with him. And so if you listen to that, you can figure out that I kind of meshed in there with him pretty quick, and it worked out great. What a fantastic bunch of guys, and I couldn't ask for a better person to work with than Stevie. He was just so gracious and so happy to have me there, and wasn't treated like a third wheel or an outsider at all. So they just made me immediately part of the band. So it was a really great time for me, and I think a great time for the blues. It's just
I agree. I agree. What I as a fan, I'm not a musician. I play an okay air guitar, and that's about it. But as a fan, especially of the blues and classic rock, when I think of people who have passed, I think, what would have been, what could have been had they still been around. I think about it about Elvis and Jimi Hendrix, and of course with Stevie. But you were right there on the inside, man. You were playing right up with him right up to the end. What thoughts like that have crossed through your mind when you look at today's music landscape? You kind of like forecast what, all right, if we were still doing double trouble here, what would we be doing? What would Stevie be doing? Where would he be at as a player? Would he be jamming with Bonamassa? All those kind of questions. Did any of those hit?
Yeah, you can't help but thinking about that. And I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is that Stevie had done the Brothers record, and they had a huge worldwide tour scheduled to go out with Jimmy and promote that record, and play festivals and gigs around the world. That's what he was gonna do. I assume that he would have done. He would have kept that going. He would have kept Double Trouble going. He would have been we would have all been busy people, and that his name would have got bigger and bigger, and really become a major star. I really think that's what would have happened. As far as now, 30, 33, 34 years later,
36, 1990, man.
36 years later, my math skills. Sorry about that. I mean, the idea of a mature Stevie, I think he still would have had a lot of fire. He might have gotten a little bit more sophisticated with the changes and done more Riviera Paradise and more Stang Swing, a little bit more jazzy kind of stuff. But I think he still would have kept the blues and maybe different kinds of rock instead of so much Hendrix. I don't know. It's hard to really predict. Like Jimmy has pretty much stayed with the blues that he grew up playing this entire time. He has. I don't think his playing has changed a heck of a lot, and maybe that would have happened with Stevie too. It's really pretty hard to say.
Well, even Hendrix was in the process of transitioning from what he was doing to, other stuff, and they say he was even talking about doing some work with Chicago, recording some stuff is, one story I heard. So who knows which way Stevie would have went, right?
I heard that same story. That Hendrix really loved Terry Kath and the way he played with Chicago, and even going on to describe him as the best guitar player in the world. And Hendrix was so creative. I mean, he kind of went so many different ways. I figured I could imagine him being playing with Miles Davis, or I can imagine him. I can imagine him with Chick Corea and Herbie Hancock, and I can imagine him with doing innumerable kinds of things. What an unbelievable loss to music and to the world when he died so young.
I agree. The sister's doing a great job in maintaining that estate and keeping it solid, and that, I mean, she takes a lot of shots for how she runs the business, but I think she's doing a great job. I've interviewed her a few times, and she, great lady, and she's doing a remarkable job of keeping Jimmy's uh,
Legacy.
legacy alive.
Yeah, I really like I mean, they put out some tracks that are questionable quality, but the thing that I really like is the Experience Hendrix tour. I think
Yeah,
that's been
yeah.
a huge success, and everybody has their favorite Hendrix songs that they get to hear by all these fantastic guitarists of each generation now. I wish they would do something like that with Stevie. That would be super cool to me.
That's a great idea. I didn't think of that, but maybe you should put some. I mean, you're tied in with all those blues people. Maybe Joe could head it up. Like he needs something else to do, right?
I think Joe wants to experience Joe.
There you go. There you go. Well, man, you have had.
He's another guy who's been great to work with. I mean, I've been with him for 11 years and played all over the world. And, it's just been a terrific guy to be on stage with and to make music with. And his whole organization cannot say anything negative about him at all. I mean, they treated me great. I really didn't want to retire from them. The only reason I did was sort of have a bad knee, arthritic knee, and the road was getting difficult. Getting up and down stairs had become a problem, and so I said, well, I'm just going to have to do something. I'm going to have to take some time off from touring until I can see if I can get better. So that's where we're at right now. So I don't know. We'll have to see what happens with my sort of semi-retirement. My knee is feeling a lot better now, so we'll see what happens with touring and gigging after this.
Well, that's I hope you do what's good for you, but as fans, we always want to see you. So it's hard not to be selfish as a fan. you know?
Well, I have high hopes for this Reese and Friends. I mean, I've got a great bunch of guys. All my friends here in Nashville as just some fantastic players that are going to be playing over at doing our first gig at Thurn and Lindsley coming up in just a couple of weeks. And Kenny Greenberg is a fantastic guitarist, been the best guitarist in this city. Well, in a city of great guitarists. You can't.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's hard to say who's the best, but I like Kenny because he's sort of got an edge to his playing. He always plays the right thing, but then he's got that little edge. He's going to give it a little extra something, especially live. Wait till you hear him live. He's outrageous. We have Allison Prestwood on bass, who was touring with Peter Frampton and is so busy in this city. I'm just happy to get her in time to be able to do this because she's just totally booked up. One of my favorite drummers, Lynn Williams, used to play with John Hyatt, and I first met him back in the 90s when we played together with Leroy Parnell. So I toured with Leroy for a couple of years.
I've forgotten that. Yeah.
Yeah, we actually had a great time. We did a bunch of Brooks and Dunn dates and some Hank Jr. dates, and just great time. Leroy was that was the time where he was getting one number one song after another. Now, didn't really make it to be a major headliner, but a lot of people really loved him and loved our band, and so that was great. And of course, I have Kevin McKendry, who is a terrific piano player, producer, writer, and has played with a bunch of different people here in this city. Kevin is one of my best friends, and I've been talking to him for years. Kevin, let's do something where we both play on the stage at the same time. Because he's a great pianist and organ player, and I think I can try to keep up with him, and he tries to keep up with me. And so here's our chance to do that. So and then we have Jimmy Hall is going to sing, who's like the best blues singer in the country, and a couple of guests. Jonelle Mosser is going to come and sing a couple of songs, and Yates McKendry, the young blues man, is going to come and sing a couple of songs too. So it's going to be a nice thing.
Well, I worked for about a year in downtown Nashville, and then COVID sent me packing back. I'm here in East Tennessee. Well, right now I'm technically in Anderson, South Carolina, but main place is in Sevierville, up in the Smokies, and so that COVID sent me packing back that direction. But man, I love being down there because there's always something going on. Of course, Third and Lindsley, that what a great venue. I saw Beth Hart and Samantha Fish there, and two different gigs, and fun. I mean, very intimate. That you got those tiers up above to be able to look down, and they have food. So, but
I think it's the best music venue of its size in this city, and I think they can get about 400, 500, 600 people in there, something like that.
is that right? I didn't realize they could get that many in there. Wow.
Because they've got the balcony and everything, it always sounds great. Everybody has a good seat.
Tell me how this thing came about for that gig coming up. I know it's from what I'm told, Bev was telling me that it's almost like equal parts celebrating your career and then also your album. Tell me how that all came about, and you've already shared who's going to be playing there, but what can fans expect who are lucky enough to get into the gig that night?
Well, the first things first, I'll tell you how it came about. The record came out about 8 years ago, and I was unable to do any kind of a record release because I was on tour, as I was touring with Joe. And I'm a lifelong sideman, I figured nobody would really be interested in me doing a gig anyway. So I just carried on. The Third and Lindsley is a place that I play all the time. I've been there with a half a dozen bands, with Mike Ferris and with Mike Henderson and with our soul band Grooveyard and with Gary Nicholson and with Jonelle Mosser and with no telling how many people I played with in that club. He says, Reese, in fact, I even did a couple of Stevie Ray anniversary shows there, and I brought Chris Layton and Tommy Shannon up from Texas, and we had a blast. And so Ron likes to get me to play there. He said, Reese, are you ever going to, now that you're off the road, why don't you get something together and come in here and play? And so he kind of gave me the idea. I tossed it around for a little while. Other friends of mine said, Reese, you got to do something. You got to play. You can't just be retired and not do something. So I decided to just see what happened. I had some songs that I had written, and called everybody I called up to be in the band. Said, yeah, I want to do it. And so what you're going to get when you come to the show is this. So we've got about 25 songs, and there's some new songs, some old songs. We're going to do some Stevie Ray songs. We're going to do some Delbert songs. We're doing Yates wants to do a couple of songs from his record. Jimmy Hall wants to do a couple of songs from his record, and I think that's all good. And so we're just going to have
It'll be a long night, isn't it?
Happy songs, sad songs, blues songs, R&B songs, little this, a little that, something for everybody.
It sounds like it's going to be a long night.
Yeah, we talked about whether we're going to take a break or not, and it's it'll be 22 songs. I guess it'd be about 2 hours, something like that. And if it's long, it's long. We're just going to keep going and not take a break. And so you come in, come early, and you'll hear the whole thing.
When people are leaving that night, I mean, you already said first of all, you mentioned Delbert McClinton. I had forgotten until I was doing my research for this chat that you had worked with him, but it was right after he did Giving It Up for Your Love. And why that song means something to me, in 1981, I guess it was, whenever John Lennon was killed, Bonnie Bramlett had just come out with her Christian album. Joe English, who was with Sea Level and Paul McCartney and Wings, he'd come out with his Christian album. And I promoted Joe's first Christian concert in Phoenix. And as dumb luck would have it, the night or the Saturday before the concert, a couple months before the concert, John was killed. So there was that whole Beatles thing. Anything to even be remotely related to the Beatles, everybody was grabbing onto. So with Joe and his tie to McCartney, I had to watch out for the fruitcakes, right? So I had that issue. But then Bonnie was on Saturday Night Live with Delbert doing Giving It Up for Your Love, and then she come and just blew the roof off the place, opening for Joe English, and then of course singing backup for him. But I noticed she had a part on this album too, did she not?
Yeah, well, that's when I met her, is when I was playing with Delbert. So I was at the session for "Giving It Up for Your Love," so I played.
Oh, okay.
I
I
played
thought
over.
it was after you were on after, so I'm wrong on that.
No, I was there, and Bonnie was there, and we would run into her occasionally, as the touring went around. And I knew Becca, her daughter, and
Mhm.
uh, and Becca actually had arranged to do for her mom and dad, for Bonnie and Delaney, to do a reunion at Third and Lindsley, and I played that, and
Wow.
that was wild. Uh, I got a question for you though, if you
Mhm.
don't mind. I don't know. This is not really about my gig or anything like that. So
No, go ahead.
You knew Joe English.
I met him, and I know well.
Did you ever
I,
know his wife Dale?
uh, no, but I know who her daughter is, and who she's married to.
Dale is the ex-wife of Dickie Betts,
Yep.
and Dickie Betts is the guy I worked with in the Second Coming that later on became morphed into the Allman Brothers.
Uh,
So, so I have a connection with Joe English as well, sort of through his wife and Dickie's ex-wife. So
well, her and Dickie's daughter is married to Frank. Oh gosh, what's his last? He's with Tesla, the band Tesla, and so there's that tie as well. So it's big musical family.
yeah, one of the really cool things that I was able to do is, like I said, one of the first really good bands I played with was with Dickie and with Barry Oakley and the Second Coming, which was a Jacksonville psychedelic band, first
Mhm.
psychedelic band in Florida, a lot of people think, and back in the late '60s. And then 50 years later, at Madison Square Garden, here comes Derek Trucks and Warren Haynes and JMO and O'Teal and Chuck Leavell, and they needed an organ player to do the Brothers, to play the Allman Brothers songs up there at Madison Square Garden. So they called me to come do that. So that was a real thrill for me.
Nice, very nice. That's cool. Um, there was somewhere I was going to go with this whole thing with it'll come back to me. But that's what I love about this business. Now I'm an outside. I'm just a fan. I get to interview guys like you. So I feel like my autographs are these interviews that I get from you guys, and instead of showing people a piece of paper, they can watch their idols talk, right? But where it blows my mind is really how tight knit the music community can be, especially within the genres they're in, but even coloring outside those lines, who's connected to who, and that you just it should teach people not to gossip, because you don't know how they're connected to the person they're talking about. So they just need to behave. So
Yeah, well, I guess that's some true words right there. You stay in this business long enough, you get to know quite a few people. So I've been lucky. I got to play with Dickie, and I got Barry Oakley and Dwayne Allman and J-Mo and Butch. I got to know all those guys. I knew the guys from Leonard Skinner. They were also there in Jacksonville. They had a band called the 1%, and they
hmm
changed their name to Leonard Skinner. They used
hmm
to open shows for us. Al Cooper was the guy who produced them. So I
ah,
knew Al. Al was playing keyboards here at the Bluebird in Nashville when I moved up here. He was
hmm
playing keyboards on the Monday Night Blues night with Mike Henderson and Glenn Worf, with the Blue Bloods was the name of that. So when I first moved to town, I went over and saw them because I wanted to see where are the blues in Nashville. Is there even any blues in Nashville? Well, yeah, there was, and they were playing it at the Bluebird on Monday nights. So I sat in there and with Mike, and he really liked what I played. So he fired Al and hired me.
Oh, wow. It happens.
So we all are connected in some ways, good and bad. We're all always all of us are love playing music and get to make a living doing the things that we love. So how sweet is
Yep.
it?
One more thing, what I was trying to think of a minute ago, one more thing about Joe English is I recently interviewed one of his guitar players, Paul Brannon, who was in the Joe English band after Joe went solo in the CCM niche, and Paul lives right there in Nashville too. Great guitarist, still plays with people and sessions and things like that. He became after he left Joe, it was mostly a he became mostly a session musician, but very, very tight player. And he's played with a bunch of others, of course, but a great guy if you ever get a chance to meet him. He's just easy to talk to, easy to get along with, very humble. And I
Well,
think
here's
you,
hoping I run into him one of these days.
yeah, that'd be great. When people walk away from this gig at Third and Lindsley, what do you hope they're talking about in the parking lot afterwards?
Well, I'm hoping they're talking about what a great time they had, and realizing that what we're bringing to the stage right there is something that a lot of people don't get to ever see, and is these kind of musicians all playing together, doing the stuff they love, that happens in Nashville quite a bit, but you go to say. Any other city in America, and Lincoln, Nebraska, maybe that doesn't happen so often there. Maybe up in Montana that doesn't happen. Maybe over in Oklahoma, Oklahoma City, it doesn't happen so often. So we're lucky here in Nashville that happens occasionally. But I mean, these are people that are the masters of their trade and should be a really good show. I'm hoping they enjoy it, and I'm hoping that this is just the first of several nights that we put together over there at Third and Lindsley. I mean, that would be awesome.
You've already mentioned you've played with so many people. How many times? I'm not going to ask you, have you, because I'm sure you have, but how many times have you been playing over the years, whether it's with Stevie, with Dilbert, um, Joe, whoever? Have you just gone and kind of like in your head pinch yourself while you're on stage or in the studio going, man, I can't believe I get to make music with these people. I mean, that I feel that way interviewing people. So I can only imagine how that feels for you. Has that happened a lot with you? Dumb question, I know.
Well, I'll tell you, the opposite happens sometimes. That happens that I'm not having a great night, and I say, "Why am I doing up here with these great musicians? I don't really belong here, and I hate it when that happens. But as far as really when I feel like I really made it, and when I really um, thought that I had something to offer. I guess the first time I really felt like that was when I was recording with Carole King down in Austin, and the great songwriter Carole King, and I ended up making 3 records with her. She had me on there for all 3 records, I think, and we went on a European tour, and she wanted me to play piano. She wanted to be out front singing. So I felt like, man, this is really something that I get to back her up. So that was great. Um, as far as pinching myself, as a musician, you play so many gigs, you're in front of so many audiences, and like I said, the second gig I played with Stevie, we had 75,000 people. I played for over 100,000 when I was working with Jerry Jeff Walker. Uh, so we have crowds every night. We have songs that we've worked hard on to make right, and as a professional, I think that I'm lucky to get to do what I do, and I'm going to try my hardest every night. But it's another night, and I'm going to get out there and give it my all. That's kind of the way I approach it every night. Some guys would say, "Hey, don't worry about it. But, you're playing for 80,000 people out there and says, "Don't worry about it, man. It's just another honky tonk. You go out there and play. You do what you do, and it's going to be just right. It's going to be really great." And there's that mentality. So as far as pinching myself, maybe I'll do that when I really do retire. That I got to do all this. I can't help thinking if I ever did pinch myself, uh, it would have been that night at Madison Square Garden with Derek and Warren, and doing those Allman Brothers songs. It felt like such bookends to my career, starting out with Dickie and Barry, and then ended up 50 years later doing a tribute to them. So I mean that was really special.
That's cool. For you, I mean, your career, you said it a while ago, you've built your career as a sideman, and you've always, that is essentially helping those artists tell their musical stories. And on this album, yeah, there's some covers and such there, but how different did it feel that for a change, having everyone come to you and gather to help you tell your story through this album?
That was unbelievable. Actually, I'd asked Joe Bonamassa to produce it, and he had never produced a record before. But I said, Joe, by that time I had been working with him for, I guess it's been 4 or 5 years. I said, Joe, I think you know me as good as any producer in the country. You know what I'm going for. And so we came up with this idea. We would get Chris Layton and Tommy Shannon to come up, and we get Kenny Wayne Shepherd to play guitar, and we're going to just do a couple of Stevie songs. I thought we would do two Stevie songs. Joe said, "Man, this is too good. You got to do Riviera Paradise. You got to do Say What. I just have to do them." And so we ended up doing 4 Stevie songs on there, which is more than I wanted to do. But I was having such a great time that you couldn't say no. And then we got this other rhythm section from Nashville, Greg Morrow and Michael Rhodes, the late Michael Rhodes, who is such a wonderful bassist. And we did the title track, Sweet Release, which is, I think, is the song. That's the song I'd really, when I had the chance to record that, I said, this is the one that I think should get played. That's why I called it, that made it the title track of the record. When I was working with Boz Scaggs, we did that song, song off of his first record, and I just thought it was such a great song. So I got to record my rendition of it 50 years later, and it ended up being a song where a lot of different people came in to sing a verse here and there. Bonnie Bramlett came in to sing, and Kev Moe sang a verse, and Vince Gill came in and sang a verse, and Warren Haynes sang a verse, and it was unbelievable. I mean, Jimmy Hall sang a verse, and my friend Paulie Sarah sang a verse. So that was great. And then we brought another rhythm section in, Lamar Carter and Calvin Turner from Los Angeles, and we did a couple of sort of jazzy instrumentals with Josh Smith on guitar, and that was a blast. And so, it was sort of a 3 records in one, and it was a great time doing it. I mean, we really had a blast making that record, and who knows, maybe there's another one coming down the line. We'll see what happens.
If so, we got to talk about it. I want another interview. So from that album, this is a 2-part question, and maybe you just answered one of these parts. Is there a track on the album that has become especially meaningful to you? And the other part of that question is, if someone has never heard the album, which song would you point to and tell them to listen to that first, and why?
Well, I think the best song on the record is "Sweet Release," and it just has so many great, fantastic vocalists on there. The lyrics are great. It's a wonderful song, and so I really think that's the one to listen to. I would point anyone in that direction. I also really like the the Cabo singing the Tampa Red song that we did, that I Got a Right to Be Blue, a song that's about 100 years old, more than 100 years old, I think. And to do that kind of a vintage uh, 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 sort of a boogie with Cabo was a great thing to do. And we started it out with a scratchy record, so you can kind of get the idea. This is something vintage coming up. Uh, those two are the ones that stick out to me. Um, and I would probably mention those first. Uh, the version we did of Crossfire was good. We got the we we were writing that song, Tommy Shannon had this bass line, and I remember when we were working the song up, he said, "Man, that's a cool line," you know. He says, "Yeah, it's kind of like a Sam and Dave kind of a groove, you know." And so we worked it up, and the lyrics came along, and Stevie ended up loving that song. So, but the idea of getting Sam to sing on it was my idea, and Sam loved doing that. So really appreciate him, and God bless him.
That was an awesome version of that. In fact, I just shared it to my friends on Facebook today. Not the Boomerocity one, but my personal ones. And check this out. This is great. When I'll give you a little backstory to lead up to my next question. I told you that I recently remarried, and last year my wife and I, while we were dating, I kind of broke her into my taste of music. She's a classically trained pianist, but plays a lot of gospel, plays a lot of pop songs and things like that, but never much into the real rock type of stuff. Her late husband was into it, but not so much her. Well, when we started dating, I had to change all of that. First concert I took her to was Alice Cooper, and so I thought if she's going to run, now would be the time. But then another concert not long after that you were at. It was you and Joe at the same venue, which was Cherokee, North Carolina, and playing there. And I'm a big Joe fan. And when we went there, when we left, I said, "Well, how'd you like it?" All she could talk about was your playing, being a keyboardist herself. That's what she zeroed in on, and
Oh,
she talked as much about your taste in playing, how your touch was, your phrasing, your restraint. You knew how to come in and when to be heavy, when to be light, and how you kind of gave an emotional foundation to Joe's sound. And watching her and hearing her say all that, it made me kind of realize something, that throughout your career, you've earned not only the admiration of audiences, but the admiration of musicians. Otherwise, you wouldn't get asked to be on all these albums, all these tours and such. Said all that to ask this question: what do you think musicians hear in your playing that perhaps the average listener, just a passive listener enjoying good music, but not really thinking about the nuts and bolts of what went into that song or into that recording? Um, what do you think that musicians hear that those kind of passive listeners never consciously notice?
well, that's a hard question. It's always hard to critique yourself, and maybe it's this. Maybe it's that I know when not to play. And I know when to play a little, and I know when a single note is all you need, and I know when somebody is really going for it. Sometimes they want a little support with them, and so this using your ears is something you got to do. When you're playing, you can't just
Mm-hmm.
play along and carry your lunch pail in there and do that kind of thing. You have to listen and you're having this musical conversation with the other guys on stage. And I always felt like that was really the most important thing, is if we're communicating with each other. If I'm responding to what you do, and you can tell that we're enjoying what we're doing on stage, that feeling kind of leaves the stage and goes out into the crowd a little bit,
Agreed.
and it sort of, well, look what they're doing, they not only they're listening to each other, they're working off each other. They're having a great time, and it sounds like that, and and so I mean, I get excited about it, music, and maybe that translates to other people and helps them get more excited about it. For some reason, I've been lucky with guitar players. They all seem to like to have me backing them up, and so and I'm happy to do it. I was just gonna run through the list of guitar players that I worked with, but there's no reason to do that. I mean, Albert Collins really loved what I did. Otis Rush loved what I did. Albert King loved me. Boz Scaggs, Dwayne Allman, you know, Joe Bonamassa, Stevie Ray Vaughan. It's a pretty good list.
Yep. Yeah, it's quite a resume.
I love the stuff I did with Kenny Wayne. We did 3 great records together. Some
Man,
of
he is awesome.
that Trouble Is record is fantastic. There's one hit after another on that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So look, I've been lucky with guitar players, and they just seem to like what I do, and I seem to be able to sense what they want and where they want to go, and I try, my job is to help them get there.
Yeah. Well, you compliment what they do, and I think a lot of times, the wingmen in bands, wing people. I shouldn't be sexist here. A lot of times they're just trying to get the next step to their stardom, they hope, and so sometimes they combat for that spotlight. I think other times you can just tell the chemistry. And fans pick up on this and out in the audience. They can tell when a group is mailing it in. Still good. I mean, heck, I'd love to be able to mail something in like that. But then, like what you're talking about, when there's just that synergy, that whole goo that holds you all together, and you're all just on that same wavelength, and you're anticipating each other's next step, and you know exactly what to do. When fans pick up on that too, and they love to see their artists have fun on stage, doing what they do best, and I think that's why you come across so well with whoever you work with, and why they like working with you.
Well, I think you nailed it pretty much. That is pretty much right on what you just said. And sometimes I overdo it. Sometimes I don't always get it right, but I'm trying my best to get it right every time.
Mm-hmm.
And so the effort is sincere.
Yep. Well, I know that it's as a sideman, it's hard. A good friend of mine, Matt Bissonette, he was Elton John's bassist on the final tour, and he told me a story one of the first times I interviewed Matt, and he said, after, because he was, he took over from Elton's normal bassist, and Elton called him after one of the first show or two, and he said, "Look, I appreciate you trying to do exactly, what's been done in the past." He goes, "Be Matt Bissonette, be you," and he goes, "It'll go great." And after that, the pressure was off, and Matt was able to be the great Matt that he is, great bassist. His brother's a great drummer, and that. And I think that's, if you know that intuitively, and it sounds like you have, that's where where the artists you've worked with have really been able to take you and let you run right there with them.
Well, and I think once again you've nailed it, because it's the artists I've worked with. Now, if I was playing with, say, the Eagles or some top 40 band, then I would play different. Where they want the exact same thing, the same way every night.
Chicago,
they get a track that'll play it. And that's what they want. and that's great for them. That's fine for them. They people want them to sound exactly like their records when they go see them. See, that's not really what I'm going for, though. I'm not really going for when we play a show. I don't want to exactly sound like the record. I want to do a performance for them. I want it to be something that you hear tonight, and maybe tomorrow night it'll be something different,
Yeah.
So that's what I like.
And this, I hope this question comes out right, because again, I'm not a musician. I just try to empathize with what musicians experience and go through. And I guess the best way I can come up with this question is, when you're sitting behind a Hammond B3, which, gosh, who doesn't love the sound of a great Hammond B3 being played greatly? What are you, as the player, what are you listening for when you're playing for somebody and with somebody?
Well, I mean, it's what am I listening for? I'm listening to what they're playing, what and how are they playing it? Because I know what I'm doing on the B3. I've been playing it for long enough. I know pretty much the ins and outs of my it's my office. I know how everything
Mhm.
works, and so I'm listening to what they're going to do, and I'm going to figure out. I know exactly how to come along with that. Just you get the computer in your mind going and say, well, he's doing this, so maybe I'm going to try something like this to go with him, and it's just it's that kind of thing. You try to find the right thing to go with what they're doing, and and then when it's my time to step up, I'm going to come up with something maybe that you never heard before, and see if you could get your computer going and kind of keep up with me. So that's the way that works. When it's their time, I'm going to find something for them. Hopefully, vice versa. That's the way it's going to work out.
Now, I've seen Joe in concert a bunch of times. I'm pretty sure that there's a time or two, because I watched all the band members as best I can. Which, by the way, I think Josh Smith is such um, he deserves a lot more spotlight than the public is giving him. I know Joe gives him plenty, and he's a great producer and co-producer with Joe and all that. But I like to watch the interaction. I try to pick up on how you guys are looking at each other. And to that point you just made, I know there's a couple times where it appeared from where I was sitting that Joe just kind of looked over at you and kind of did the raised eyebrow thing, like, "Oh, you're going to go there, huh?" That kind of thing.
Well, you just never know what I'm going to do.
That makes it fun, keeps it from being boring. So, well, speaking of Joe, what has made that relationship that you've had with him so rewarding? I mean, he's known for pulling incredible talent to back him up on stage. And, I became a fan of his, gosh, probably 20 years ago, when a friend of mine loaned me one of his CDs, and I just became an instant fan. And so he's always brought in these top-notch musicians to play along with him, and they stay with him, pretty good bit. But what, for you personally, what has made that musical relationship so rewarding?
Well, I mean, he has good songs, and the the shows we do are well produced. Uh, um, the musicianship is professional. Is great people always. When I joined them, we were doing excuse me, we were doing a tribute to Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf, and uh, and so I said, well, this is going to be great. I get to play the blues. We'll get to play all these great songs with his hot guitar player Joe Bonamassa. So I mean, he was really had a bunch of hot licks. I thought that was going to be big fun, and it was. And so then he asked me to join the band, and little did I know his band was going through some turmoil. And a couple of months after I joined, he fired the bass player and drummer and got a whole new rhythm section. And
Mm.
uh, and so that was a change of pace. But we kept that same band together then for a little while. He added some horns and then we got rid of the horns and we added the backing vocals and so it's changed around a little bit. But the thing that's been constant the whole time through is Joe's professionalism, and he's gonna put on a great show every night, which I appreciate that. and we can go out. We can hit the stage any night, any place, and I know it's going to be good. And for me, I'm lucky enough to where he's going to feature me a little bit, so I get to not only back him up, but I get to play a little bit myself. So I appreciate that.
Well, to that point about his professionalism, there were two events, two different shows that I saw him at. Like I said, I've probably seen him 8 or 9 times in concert. And one time at the Cherokee that my wife wound up being with uh, at with me, he he had to have a root canal the day before. He had to run from Cherokee back to Nashville,
Right.
and I think the Percodan was still making him feel pretty good. He made a comment or so about it, and then another time, there's just one-off stories here in Chattanooga. He was playing, and then right when he was doing a killer solo, I mean, which one I don't know. Um, all of a sudden, his sound went out on the guitar,
Huh.
and I thought that would hack me off. I would wonder, it would throw me off instantly. He just kept going, and when it come back on, he gave a glance at somebody's side, stage left, and he just kind of is like whatever, And he kept on going. He didn't let it rattle him or anything like that, and that's just the sign of a consummate professional.
Yeah, well, he is definitely a professional. The day after that third Lindsley gig, I'm gonna fly out to Colorado and sit in with him at the Red Rock show.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh wow. Very cool. I've never seen a gig at Red Rocks. I want to go there
Really?
sometime.
You've never been there?
Never been there. Been Phoenix, gigs in
Well, now
Phoenix and California or what? Yeah.
I have to say it's the best outdoor venue in the country. So
Wow.
you don't want to miss a gig there. If you get a chance to go out there, take it.
I wish I was seeing you guys there. That's who I want to
Wish you
see
were
there. I mean,
too.
I, I got to win the lottery first, Reese. But hey, one thing I wanted to ask you too about your time with Joe, and then I want to flip back over to something on Stevie. What working with Joe those 11 years, what have you learned from him over those years that you didn't know before?
With Joe, well, the thing about Joe is he's got a bunch of different kinds of songs. They're not all blues songs. Sometimes
Right.
they're power ballads and rock songs and sometimes there's the orchestra. And I've never used the strings as much before as I have with Joe. So a lot of times I'll start out with a pad on the organ and then I'll bring in the orchestra with my other keyboard and I kind of mix it in with a low synth pad and kind of get that real warm orchestral pad going, and I could play uh, organ lines above it,
Hmm.
so that's something I've never done with other people. So that
Uh,
I'd have to say that's for me that's one of the things that has changed the most, changed my playing the most, working with Joe. Um, Also, Joe puts us up in really nice hotels. So I get used to staying you get used to the Days Inn and the Holiday Inn Express with other bands, and they give you, you make more money at the end of the tour because you save money on the road. Joe, he says, "Oh no, we're not doing any of that. We're Four Seasons and Crown Plaza and this and that, and so we always stay in someplace nice. It's amazing how much breakfast costs in those hotels.
oh yeah.
Just incredible. I mean, we laugh about the $50, $60 breakfast that we get sometimes. So also learn that.
I remember he told a story. I saw him up in Lexington, Kentucky. That's about 12 years ago, and he had Derek Sherinian on keys then, and he was talking about where they were eating somewhere, and since they were in Kentucky, they had to have some Kentucky bourbon, and he kind of went off on how much that bourbon cost them. He wanted a shot, and he goes, when he saw the bill, he goes, "Did I buy the whole bottle?" It sounded like it was at one of those high-end hotels as well. So,
Oh, and they do take advantage of their clientele.
yeah, that's true. Back on Stevie, what do you what part of his personality do you think people still understand about him, or what maybe not his personality, but just him, him as a person that people still get wrong after all these years?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, he's held in pretty high regard by most people these days. Um, Back then, I mean, they people would call him an Albert King clone, and say, "I wish you wouldn't play that Hendrix stuff." So he got a certain amount of criticism back then. Um, and I don't hear him getting any criticism now. I mean, that he's gone. It's all about his legacy and what a fantastic musician he was. Incredible that he never read music. He never took a lesson, and he just had this ear and he knew what to play. I mean, he always knew what to play. The guy never messed up. Especially after he sobered up. He never, he
Right.
was on his game all the time. And it was just amazing to be there with him. And 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 what I liked and what a lot of guys don't ever do is Stevie would talk about the songs, in the bus after the show. We some guys don't want to talk about the show at all. They don't talk about the songs. Let's talk about sports or who's doing this and who's doing that. And he wanted, but he was really interested in the music and what did I think about this and what did I think about that. And so we would have these long conversations about how can we make this better and that better. And I think it really paid off. I mean that band got better and better the longer it stayed together. So I mean, but some of the best years of my life. I wish it would have gone on a lot longer.
Yeah, everybody does. That was such a tragedy that his life was cut short like that. For you personally, what's one accomplishment that you're especially proud of that almost nobody ever asked you about?
Well, as a sideman, I've got to work with a lot of great people, and uh, I've gotten plenty of recognition for the things that I do. I've got the Grammys, I've got the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and the Nashville Musicians Hall of Fame, and Musician of the Year, and things like that. Um, um, when I get a chance, I try to help the young artists who are coming along, and if I could, what I like to do, and some guys don't like to do this. I like to talk to the crowd. I like to go out and meet them afterwards and just how you doing? You hope you enjoyed it. Hope you had a great time. And we have you see people walking around. You want to say hello and everything. I like to do that. I like to mingle with the clientele. Some guys just want to stay in the dressing room and go to the bus and go on to the next gig. So I'm different than some guys like that. So, but as far as anything noteworthy that I've done that nobody knows about. I don't know if I've done anything that I could think of at the moment. So I don't really have a good answer for you on that question.
That's good enough answer. Who's the funniest musician you've ever worked with?
Oh my goodness. Well, that's a good question too. Been with so many guys. Uh, and the show band that I was with back in the early '70s, we had this thing that's called a show band, and it was a 6 or 7 piece horn band, and we would go play these show nightclubs, and there were like 500 to 1,000 seater places. We would do 5 sets a night, 3 dance sets and 2 shows, and the guy who was the leader of that band, our show band was called Pandemonium, and And the guy, our bass player was the lead singer, and he would put the bass down and become a front man during the show, and I would play key bass. And his name was Ellsworth, and he was the funniest guy. He had me rolling on the floor nightly, just one joke after another. And a guitar player that I played with back then, Mason Fountain, great funny guy, and you should have seen Mason and Ellsworth together. I mean, they would have been a hit on any TV show. They was just so comic. My friend Polly Sarah, who played sax with Joe, was a really funny guy, man. He would make me laugh every day. I really appreciate that. So many sad things going on in the world. It's good to have a laugh every now and then.
Boy, isn't that the truth? Yeah. What is there a favorite backstage story you have that you've never really had the opportunity to tell, or that you can tell that you've never had the opportunity to? I'm sure there's a lot you can't tell, but
Um, um, I guess the story of some of the early bands back in the '60s. We played go-go bars, and I don't know if you know what go-go bars are. Where they have dancers in cages, and the way the band would play, and sometimes we would share dressing rooms, so that was kind of risque at the time. Nobody would do anything like that now, and but that was what it was like back in the '60s. And it makes me realize how old I am. That I can tell stories about that from the '60s, and it's just such a different time. I can remember being in San Francisco and seeing Jimmy Smith, and when I was working with Boz Skaggs, and we would play the Fillmore. There was a lot of funny business going on in the dressing rooms, and it's just, I'm not going to really repeat any of that stuff. So I guess backstage is private business. I guess I'm just not going to go there. I'm sorry.
it's Las Vegas. What happens there stays there, right?
It's like Las Vegas, exactly like Las Vegas.
What you mentioned all your accomplishments, and I've got this one other question. Then I'll cut you loose. You've been so generous with your time. You've had all these accomplishments, and when those accomplishments become history, what do you hope people remember most about you?
Oh my goodness. As a lifelong musician, and I've received accolades, and so I'm very I feel appreciated. I'm really grateful for the accolades that I've received, and so when my time comes, I just hope I get remembered for putting some positive sounds out into the world, and that's really all I wanted to do is make a positive impression, make you feel better about after you listen to me. You feel better about things.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know.
It sounds good. What final question for you? After Third and Lindsley, what else you got on the radar for the rest of the year?
Well, other than the Joe Bonamassa gig at Red Rocks, I'm going to do Stevie tribute with Mike Zito in St. Louis in November, and that'll be a lot of fun. And I'm doing some shows with Warren Haynes in December in Asheville. I think it's his Christmas show, so I've got that coming up, and hopefully some more recent friends shows along the line too. So
that would be great. I hope you do that.
That's what for me.
I just interviewed Warren for the first time recently. Love that guy, and I'm hoping to catch his gig. He's touring with Ziggy Marley, and he's going to be stopping in Asheville for that. But I don't know about the Christmas one yet, if I'm going to be able to do that one or not. But great guy. I hope I can catch it when you're playing with him. That would be super.
I think it's December the 8th. I could be wrong though. I'd have to look it up on the calendar.
I'll check it out and hit him up for a couple of passes. But in the meantime, I don't know yet, but I'm going to shoot for Third and Lindsley. I know you'll be covered up with tons of friends, so it'd be unlikely we'd be able to meet up and shake hands, but sometime I do want to meet you face to face and shake your hand and just tell you in person, thank you again for all the years of phenomenal music and your contributions to that, man. It's it's not gone unnoticed by the fans. Let me tell you.
I really appreciate it, Randy. And thank you, Boomerocity. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate that.
The pleasure is all ours, my friend. And I look forward to talking to you a lot more in the future. So anytime you've got something to promote, my door is always open to you.
Fantastic. Thanks, Randy.
Thanks, Reese. Take care.
This has been another fun-filled episode of Boomerocity with your host and producer, Randy Patterson. The theme song for Boomerocity is Roll the Dice and is recorded and used by permission from Quentin Hope. Quentin is spelled Quinten, and Hope is H-O-P as in Paul, E. And you can find out more about Quentin Hope and his music at quintenhope.com. Post-production is done by Cardinal Sins Productions. The Boomerocity name, logo, and content is copyright protected. Segments may only be used with written permission by Boomerocity and or its assignees. Inquiries should be directed to input@boomerocity.com. Copyright 2026.
Most people overpay for car insurance, not because they're careless, but because switching feels like too much hassle. That's why there's Jerry, your proactive insurance assistant. Jerry compares rates side by side from over 50 top insurers and helps you switch with ease. Jerry even tracks market rates and alerts you when it's best to shop. No spam calls, no hidden fees. Drivers who save with Jerry could save over $1,300 a year. Switch with confidence. Download the Jerry app or visit jerry.ai/Libsyn today. That's JERRY.ai/LIBSYN.
Fall's a time to plan ahead and ensure your brand shows up in ways that matter. 4imprint's promotional products work as hard as you do and make a lasting impression. From quality apparel, including exclusive brands, to drinkware, tech, and totes, they've got thousands of options to fit your brand and budget. Plus, you get free samples, expert help, and their 360-degree guarantee. So you'll be 4imprint certain everything shows up just right, right on time. Explore more at 4imprint.com.
4imprint.